Hey guys, I'm Chris. Welcome to the channel. I don't know how you found me, but you're welcome. Let me tell you a story. You are one of 8 billion. You can't comprehend how much 8 billion is, but when you try to break it down, it makes you feel small. Despite being a flickering light so infinitely tiny and incredibly brief, your soul is vast. This doesn't make you unique. You pilot an intricate system of living tissue, the building blocks of which were forged by dying stars, and your vessel moves through a hostile world built by the long dead. And then there's the art thing. Art is this strange, undulating byproduct of human consciousness that exists like a vast, invisible ocean in the ether, waiting to be irrigated through the conduit of your soul and to be irrevocably colored by that transportation. When the sluice is open, you and billions of others direct the flow through winding paths, a megalithic delta ultimately streaming to a more tangible body of water on the other side, something corporeal this time. A sea of situations and moments rebranded as products. This body of water costs money, or more accurately, it makes money. Just not for those involved. Not really. You're not the best artist, but you don't have to be. You don't even want to be. You just want to be in service of the great ocean beyond the veil. The privilege of sharing your soul is enough. You're doing it. You're doing the thing, the human thing, connection. You exist. But there's another thing, the money thing, and a society of spectacle. And a horrible feeling like all these conduits of artistic expression are being redirected behind the scenes. Not so much canals as they are feeding tubes. And I need to mention the dam that stops your path. You cannot pass this dam unless you manipulate art in such a way that pleases the builders. It's not your art, and it's not society's art. Not until you pay the toll. I'm never gonna be a fucking YouTuber. So there's this thing called the algorithm, and a content creator might describe it like this.
It turns all your bad feelings into good feelings. It's a nightmare.
And it's got at least some YouTubers asking the question, what's the point?
The people like me putting all that they have into one project after the next and throwing it into the void for you. Is that act valuable? Is creating content for the vacuous expanse of the internet a good thing?
So you recently started a YouTube channel, and your first video turns out better than you ever expected. You feel like you're onto something. Not a matter of if, but when. So you decide to look into the guts of this whole YouTube thing and, well, fuck. So I've been following these content creators for a while now, and they're a big inspiration. I'm only a little insecure in admitting that. CGTX's videos that are explicitly about art, like in the title, are some of their best. These videos are incredibly philosophic engagements with art that spiral into these manic treatises on why it's your duty to create and never compromise. And that's so cool. These videos are effective, and the content plays into CGTX's artistic mythos, along with their metatextual thumbing of the algorithm. CGTX is a content creator that openly antagonizes the audience, speaks about art spiritually, and seems to be made of like 100% integrity. They don't even look at YouTube analytics. At least that's what they say, and I'm inclined to believe them. They just make art and success comes to them. Okay, first of all, how dare you? Like it or not, authentic or not, CGTX has this whole Apollonian ideal image nailed down. They are hashtag goals for artists everywhere. Don't think about metrics, don't do ad reads, just let the art flow and work hard and voila. Success. CJ, as they are presented to us, is the extreme end of art in the world that we live in today. In their latest jam, CGTX invokes MrBeast as an example of the extreme opposite. Very successful, but entirely focused on the algorithm, the money thing.
Part 8, the MrBeast to CJ the X continuum. I still have never watched a MrBeast video. I had never heard of this guy, and once I had, my subjective taste in Humean inductive reasoning did not encourage me to learn more. But 2 different people in my life that knew me and knew MrBeast independently came to the same conclusion that there exists a spectrum between CJ the X and MrBeast when it comes to YouTube.com content creation.
MrBeast is in service of entertainment, likes, clicks, and engagement. To him, it's synonymous with quality. But what's most profitable and engageable isn't always the same thing as what's most valuable or good. Otherwise, it would mean Avatar is the greatest movie of all time. It's not. It's really not. It's not. So you're a content creator. You've got a dichotomy. Are you CJ the X? Or are you MrBeast? Are you Jedi or Sith? Do you worship on the altar of art or on the altar of attention? It's an easy choice for any artist, right? Wrong! Fool! If CJ the X is thesis and MrBeast is antithesis, then Mia Cole is all synthesis all the time, baby. She recently dropped a video about MrBeast as well. But while she starts the video insisting that she's nothing like MrBeast, she ultimately begins to acknowledge that she admires his drive and dedication, despite finding his content pretty vapid. Tasty, but empty, like fast food. Ultimately, it leads her to finally admit something.
MrBeast is kind of just like me for real. He's just like me for real, goddammit.
This might be why I'll never be a YouTuber. But then again, well, maybe not. I don't know. Mia is like the rest of us. She's what happens when you're caught in the nexus between CJ the X and MrBeast. Two sirens on opposite shores calling us to crash upon their rocks or whirlpool in place as we try and go in two directions at once. Lots of water imagery in this video, and yet look at that thumbnail. Gee, I wonder what I was trying to do there.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Which is actually a good segue. Because what happens when you give a bunch of creative people a creative problem, like how to increase click-through rate and engagement and retention? Even the ones who are just interested in making art, not money or clout, they gravitate toward being creative. Duh. Look at all the shiny analytics and the graphs and the numbers. It's like a cool puzzle. This is the dam. You want it open, and it says it will if you play a game. Their game. The analytics game. And here's the thing, games are fun. At the very least, they're engrossing, sometimes to a fault. And they engage the creative side of our brain. Of course we're gonna play. And just like that, you're not just playing the analytics game, you're playing the money game without necessarily knowing it. Maybe you're after a bag, maybe not, but you're set off on making money, at least for YouTube. And you're stuck in the whirlpool between CJ the X and MrBeast, right alongside Mia Cole as she outperforms us all.
Where do I sign the paper, Jimmy? Where's the goddamn paper, Jimmy? Where's the goddamn paper, Jimmy?
So what do? Give up? Fuck no. You dive into the gaping maw of content creators that have successful YouTube channels that are successful by creating content about how to create successful YouTube channels. Full of videos about how they used to make huge mistakes early on as content creators with YouTube channels about how to have a successful YouTube channel, but then realized how to stop making those mistakes so that they could have a successful YouTube channel about having a successful YouTube channel. And so the mistakes they reference were obviously present in their earlier videos that are still up, and sometimes clipped into later videos about how to have a successful YouTube channel to begin with, begging the question of what the fuck have I watched 1,000 of these? Am I in hell? I think I'm in hell. Look, I was already in mini crisis after rushing to create a video that was focused on the wrong parts of itself, because I was thinking more about synthesizing the algorithm with my own subjectivity rather than servicing the real core of what I was trying to say. It sort of bombed, people were not pleasant about it, and then I saw Mia's video. Truth is, this channel isn't a matter of when, like I thought. It's a matter of if. And that would be okay if it weren't for the money thing. We'd all be much more comfortable serving that vast hidden ocean called art if we didn't have to worry about how to eat. And yet a lot of us ask ourselves, what's the point of balancing your content on the edge of a knife? You can't ever go full art mode, and you can't ever go full beast mode either. In other words, what's the point? When you're a small creator in the whirlpool, failure looms large. Will you be able to find an audience, which is linked to making money? And also, will you be able to make good art? And will that art find an audience on its own merit? Also, why is this happening to my brain? These questions give me historical deja vu, so let's do a flashback. Once upon a time, there was an important art collective called the Situationists International, originating in France in the 1950s. The Situationists were like a bunch of French CJ the X's running around, but they also eventually helped start a rebellion in 1968 that almost succeeded in bringing about a true anarchist revolution.
During this dramatic night of bloodshed and terror, there were similar scenes in many centers of provincial France. Workers were already talking of victory, but still General de Gaulle remained silent.
However, they were artists first and foremost, and they believed that art isn't an object, it's a situation. In fact, that all life was meant to be lived and experienced as a long string of situations.
Art is an event. It's not in the photo, it's not in your mind, it's in the interaction between the two. You ever experience something uncannily cinematic in real life and go, that was just like a movie? Yeah, it was, wasn't it? It wasn't like art, it is art. Of course we can elevate anything to an art form. Art is the feeling.
They argued that capitalism had become so ubiquitous and so monstrous that it changed the way we organize society. This is the 1950s, by the way. We stopped looking at life like a collection of situations and started looking at life like a collection of objects. We want stuff, money, status, clout, not experience. We even structure our ideas about life stages in materialistic terms now. School, career, marriage, kids, all things that bring about situation and experience, but are talked about like objects. They're things to obtain now. They called this the Society of the Spectacle. The Situationists even started to ask, how architecture, infrastructure, and environment contributed to this sea change that they saw in our individual psyches and society at large. The objectification of everything. They called it psychogeography, and it was incredibly influential. So how could they break through all that capitalist realism and create real art and real situations? They settled on a method called détournement, which literally means hijacking. It's the process of turning expressions of capitalist culture and its media culture against itself. It's like remixing different art objects to create a situation that jolts people out of the status quo. Situationists often use strange phrases and weird slogans reworked from popular advertisements to get under your skin. It had a big impact, and yeah, it led to some pretty cool revolutionary stuff. By the 1980s, this technique was called culture jamming in English-speaking countries. The idea was not to just fight capitalism with forceful activism or electoralism, but to add sabotage into the mix. All the old forms of culture jamming have kind of been recuperated by now. We've seen it all before, and it's not really a threat to the status quo. But the method is alive and well on Twitter. You know about Elon Musk, right? Big, goofy idiot, total billionaire, not for long. Since he bought Twitter for like $44 billion, he has been making a lot of mistakes. And his biggest one is the pay-to-play $8 blue checkmark scheme. Pay $8, get verified, and get prioritized by the algorithm. Almost immediately, people started to engage in something that can only be described as détournement. The best and most effective example is this tweet from an account impersonating Eli Lilly declaring that insulin is now free. You know, as it was initially intended to be. Eli Lilly's stock dropped and it was forced to expose itself. It had to assertively declare, no, insulin was not free. So sorry if you were tricked into believing that you had a right to exist without a paywall. Not only did this hurt the company, but it essentially cut real live agitprop. It created a situation. This tweet sums it up best. It cost some hero $8 to evaporate billions in Eli Lilly stock value. Elon accidentally created one of the most cost-effective anti-capitalist tools in history. This method of sabotage, this is good. I would argue this is art. This is a situation. We need more of this. Who wants to be stuck in the whirlpool, desperately trying to authentically express yourself while attempting to appease a cold, low-key racist robot invented by technocrats so they can accrue capital exponentially forever? I'd love to imagine myself as some brilliant artist who can transcend this swirling money pit and create art objects that break through, never compromising, always fearless, and being able to financially provide. But, and hear me out here, I may not be that brilliant artist. I have to play the algorithm game for the money thing. When I've tried that with other artistic endeavors, and boy, I've tried, I've burned out every time. Or more accurately, faded away. Playing the game just hurts too much. And part of me is scared that all of that is a weakness. But if I'm being really honest, it doesn't feel like a weakness. I kind of like that part of myself. And yet I don't, because it makes it really hard to pay the bills. But something is different, especially with this format. If you have an audience, however small, you have a way to create situations. You might never make it and be a successful YouTuber, but you can still create real art, maybe real transgressive art, even if you're swirling in place. You can remix your own art objects in a process of culture jamming to suggest something. Your content is just a collection of pieces that are more like building blocks rather than the main event. You can intentionally say something metatextual with your time on a platform. Can you curate an experience around a channel that says something willful and thought-provoking? I think of Jenny Nicholson's essay on a series of strange Hallmark videos. Any one video isn't all that interesting, but it's the story that's experienced between each video. One woman's relationship with her power and her need to protect it, her failing to assess the real threat, and her ultimate downfall. There are even some scholars who think that Shakespeare's sonnets are best read this way, not as individual works, but as a story in between the poems that we need to fill in for ourselves. I think this can be a way out of the whirlpool, or at least a way to cope with it. A way to address and even incorporate the statistical likelihood that you'll never be a YouTuber. It's a sort of recuperation for the artistic proletariat. I might crash and burn, or fade away, or maybe I won't and I'll actually succeed algorithmically. But even if you have to compromise your art for the AI gods, you can still possibly engage in culture jamming, especially if you try to tell a story in between the videos, or even just create a willful experience around them. I think this is good. I believe in this as a method that, if used by enough people, can actually change things. It did once already. A lot of us are already on board with viewing our problems as systems that need systemic solutions, right? But we're all so frustrated being caught in an architecture that goads us into thinking that we're individuals onto ourselves instead of individuals onto something greater. We're indoctrinated into thinking that we're heroes or villains or NPCs or side characters, rather than a small but crucial part of an interlocking system. Insignificant by itself, but absolutely critical when put into context. You need to view yourself as part of a community, but not as a leader or a follower or a subscriber or a content creator. Surrender to the process of the construction of a new system, a system you can't fully fathom because it's beyond your pay grade. The problem isn't being a cog in the machine. The problem is, what machine are we talking about here? If you're going to build something new and better, you're still going to have to be a cog. That's how we're built. That's how systems are made. Our lives are drops in an ocean or cells in a body, whatever. It's worth noting that at least in my country, even the physical infrastructure is there to keep us feeling separated. The sensation is the same either in the suburbs or the city. It's either stroads and sprawl or the grid and the grind, but either way, we don't feel like a community. No wonder social media can be such a comfort, but it's a cold comfort because there's an infrastructure to our digital lives as well, to the internet, the architecture of YouTube, the new psychogeography. Beat your head against the massive brutalist dam blocking your path. Create something around yourself. Make a situation, whatever that means to you. Trust and accept that if enough of us do this, the dam will crack. What will art look like then? Can we make it look like that now? You're one of 8 billion. Your soul is vast. You move through a hostile world built by the long dead. People have broken through before, and they'll do it again. I promise you, something beautiful is going to happen. God. I'm never going to be a YouTuber.